Hey there, Great Donkeys of the Bible, Part 5. I'm going to read just a bit in Mark chapter 11, verse 1. As they approached Jerusalem at Bethphage and Bethany near the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples and said to them, "Go into the village opposite you, and immediately as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there on which no one yet has ever sat. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone says to you, 'Why are you doing this?' you say, 'The Lord has need of it.'" So this is the triumphal entry, as people call it, or Palm Sunday. This is the week before Jesus is crucified. He's entering Jerusalem. The people are expecting him. They are excited. And this, he chooses to ride a donkey in, and not just a donkey, but a colt, a young donkey that no one has ridden yet. He chooses to do so in a deliberate fulfillment of the scripture, the prophecy of the Messiah in Zechariah chapter 9 and verse 9 says that the king, see your king coming to you riding on a donkey. So you can look at that, but this is one of the only times that Jesus deliberately fulfills a prophecy. He does so to make the statement, yes, I am that king. I am the Messiah. And as he comes in, the people are blown away. I mean, you read the story. They're singing and crying out, and it's an incredible, quite a day. Anyway, I encourage you to read more about that. But to the donkey's point, Jesus chooses to ride a donkey in, and that is driving home one the fulfillment of prophecy, but the prophecy, God's intention was that he would ride in on a donkey, making making his intentions clear. When when a conqueror came into a city riding on a horse, it was making the impression that I'm willing to do battle. I'm here to fight. When a great man came into a city riding on a donkey, when a conqueror, if a city submitted to him, and then he makes his approach to the city on a donkey, he's making the statement that I'm coming in peace. And so Jesus is making that statement that he's not coming to destroy Jerusalem and their people, but he's coming to bring peace to them, that they would live at peace with one another. He's also making the point that when you would come in on a horse, you're showing your military strength. Jesus is coming in on a donkey, making the point that he is the king and he is conquering, but he's not doing so based on military strength, but on wisdom. So Jesus chooses the donkey carefully, according to Scripture and according to God's intention, what he's trying to communicate to his people through symbol. And the people would have understood that at the time. We certainly don't understand it necessarily. Most of us don't understand it nowadays anyway. But to sum up, the use of the donkey by the people of God through the years, and some of the ones that we've gone over, God makes a point of using donkeys in specific situations, and then giving us those stories in the Scripture to make to help us see things. One, like in the story of Balaam's donkey, that he can be seen, heard, understood by even the least of us if we are humble and have our eyes open. Where in that story, the supposed wise man of God doesn't see the angel. He's not seeing spiritually, and yet the donkey can see. And so that's one point that we should understand. Another is that as the 30 wise men and many of the characters in the Old Testament, see prophets and otherwise riding on donkeys, um, God is making a point to us that he rules not by strength and not by his battle is not quick, but he he rules according to wisdom, and his plan is long, and he's got a perspective that's so much bigger than ours, and so much longer. Um, when when Samson takes up the jawbone of a donkey and defeats his enemies, God's making this point that God can use even the weakest things to destroy his enemies and the work of the enemy, and that God prefers and deliberately chooses to use the weak things to make the point that the victory is not in the tool, but in God. And when Jesus rides in on the colt, the young donkey, he says one that's never been ridden. That's 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 really actually really cool that Jesus makes the point to us that he can use even the untrained. If you're called to seminary, if you're called to Bible college, then that's great. But God can use the untrained. He can use fishermen. He can use people who have been addicts, people who have been in the streets, and he can use uneducated, regular people. If he can use an untrained donkey, and he can train it just by his presence, he can and bring it all the gifts that are needed, then he can use us. And I guess to wrap up, the verse says, and if anyone asks, you just tell them the Lord has need of it. And if the Lord has need of donkeys, sometimes to speak, sometimes to defeat his enemies, sometimes just to make the point that he can use anything, then he can use us. And so, if you count yourself, a fool, if you count yourself weak, if you count yourself as untrained and ill-equipped, then you are perfectly set up to be used by God to make a point that the power and the glory belong to God. So I encourage you, read the scripture with eyes open. The Lord he wants to use you. Amen.